So let's start, shall we, Chewy? Let's start about what was going on today. This is from One News this afternoon, as they were all talking about budgets. Jack Tame crossed outside the building and asked Debbie Ngarewa-Packer, what did the protest achieve today? This is what she said.
I think the most important thing that's been achieved, this is the second activation and it has shown the absolute growth. We are now confirmed as being 20% of the population, to 1 million of the population, and we are unhappy with the continual dismantling of kaupapa that has incrementally been advanced and advancing our people, whether it be from the health sector to the reo, to our environment, to oranga tamariki. And what we've seen today is a budget that represents that. Why would anybody be wanting to turn up to celebrate a budget that represents the cuts that they have ruthlessly made against Māori and against tangata hoa, against our rainbow communities, against our whenua?
So there you go. That was comments from Deb. Let's get into the protests today, Chewy. I'll go find some photos and stuff. You can tell us about your experiences. Anything else you've seen? You can bring up that ODT thing as well, because I've got the video to show as well.
Well, I think I do have that ODT article. Yes. So yeah, I sort of mentioned this yesterday that I was lucky enough to have
a good boss,
a manager who
a lovely boss
understood how important this was to me, and how important expressing yourself in a democratic process and a protest is important, and probably more important than having me there for a little bit. So I was lucky. There's a lot of people that didn't have that security. So yeah. I think when you do have that security, it's doubly important that you go. You're representing not just yourself at that point. The other important thing for me is something that we've talked a lot about on the show is Māori can't do this by themselves, nor should they. And to hear something echoed in a couple of the speeches, I think that speaks to that as well. What is good for Māori is good for all of us. Because
that's literally, and not to diminish the cultural conversation that was going, but that's literally, we're only as strong as the weakest link. Now, horrible way to think about it, but we all know that Māori are at the bottom of a lot of social stats. So, and a bunch of and I'm not saying they're weak, and you're not strong, you don't have mana or anything like that, but when it comes to social stats, if you're down the bottom, then you need the most help. So in other words, if you are the one sitting on the bottom of those social stats, if it's good for you and it helps you, then it helps everybody. Simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it was a really good turnout. It was a shitty cold, always threatening rain the entire time, but it was a really, really good turnout. I think Pat's got here some video of the march coming into the Octagon. Now, remember, the ODT has said that this is 300 people.
Yeah. Did we actually tell them that before, or did we just tell them that they were being dicks? So that's the number the ODT has listed, 300. This is me just standing off to the side. Remember also, guys, Dunedin, 125,000 people, right? So, I think Dunedin punches above its weight with these kinds of things quite often. Like, as from someone who's only lived here 10 years, it's impressive to see from time to time. And I lift up the camera in a second so you can see how far it keeps on going. There you go. Still a block to come of people.
Very obviously, just 300 people. Tiny turnout.
Well, you guys were saying, because I had that doesn't matter why today, but I had a procedure, an operation on my leg last Friday, so I didn't do the walk, so I just waited up at the Octagon. And you said there was probably 1,000 down at the start of the walk, and I know more people turned up to the actual event. I've got a bunch of photos here from various people. This is actually from someone here in Dunedin. Let me bring it back up. So this is down at the Cenotaph. But by the time they went and got to, maybe ODT, if we're going to give them any credit, which we don't need to, maybe they were at the start of the Cenotaph and they didn't see as many people. But this is now up the top. This is the middle of the Octagon, people who don't know Dunedin. So that road there behind them literally cuts the middle of the Octagon. And there were more people than there were down there, because I saw people joining like me that weren't able to do the whole thing, work reasons, whatever. So I reckon it went by another half again. So I wouldn't be surprised if it did a head count at some stage. There might have been 2,000 people, but I like being accurate and fair. Let's say there was probably at least 1,500 people. So it was pretty awesome, actually. Pretty awesome.
Also, shout out and acknowledgements to those of you that came up and said hi to me. I was down there in a BHN hoodie, so obviously made myself a bit of a target. But it was good to have a wee chat and to see you there and hear your comments about the show. It was really, really good.
Yeah. I think this might be Wellington. This might be Wellington, maybe. So you keep going, Chu.
Yeah,
I'll roll through some photos.
That's Auckland. That's Aotearoa.
Oh, that's Auckland. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
The other thing I just want to put up that ODT article just so you can see the juxtapose the article that they put up with the photos that they actually put up. Oh, I've lost the page. Where's it gone? Is it that
we
one?
Can see it.
Is it that one? I don't know if it's the same one I've got. Hang on.
They're saying hundreds of people.
Yeah. So here we go. 300 strong protest. And then there's that picture.
Yeah.
Which is not 300 people.
Yeah.
And I mean, this just seems to be a bit of a thing for the ODT. There's Aotearoa Square as well. I saw images from Wellington, especially because we've got a lot of friends in Wellington that went to that protest. And the crowd outside the railway station before the March on Parliament looked immense.
I read somewhere said 5,000. Hey, there's
me.
I didn't even realize you were wearing your BHN gear, bro. There you go.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, look, I've seen a lot of comments on social media for people that just aren't on message with this. You know, how can you be marching against the budget when it hadn't even been announced? It wasn't about the budget. This was about taking a big day for the government and changing the conversation and just saying, here is a bunch of people that we know this budget isn't for. And all of these things that have, like, as we were talking about, have had funding cuts for Māori and Pacific Islanders, funding cuts for housing, which affects Māori, affects all of us, removing the treaty from legislation. Like, the last 6 months has everything the government has done, almost without exception, has negatively affected Māori. And as we heard from that clip from Luxon the other day, you know, protest, you know, it's understandable when there's a real tangible sense of frustration.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And there it is. And they're not camping out on the lawn. They're not forming barricades. They're not abusing passing school kids. The vibe, if you guys had, well, the guys in Wellington will know what that COVID camp was like to be around as far as tone and feeling. And those of us that experienced groundswell moving through their towns, the vibe was different. The vibe was
the singing. The Kapa Haka group came up at the end for probably 20 minutes at the end, and it was amazing. Amazing.
And one of the speakers in Dunedin really nailed it and just said, look, I'm horribly mangling this. I should have written it down at the time. The thing that will set this movement apart from others is the mana that people carry into it. And I think that sort of reminder of almost like taking the high road and just holding that just completely changes the vibe of the whole thing. There is anger out there, don't get me wrong. But this was more about a united movement. And it was refreshing to see some just truly excellent, knowledgeable speeches from young people that are coming through, something we've talked about on this show, and something that I saw demonstrated in signs that we saw, Generation Tiriti. Those guys know. They know what's up.
This is Rotorua. We've had some photos from Rotorua, and I'm sorry about some of those photos. If you sent me a photo over Messenger, like into the BHN book, when you go through Facebook, it squeezes the images down a fair bit. These are the ones. I think these ones are off email. These are from Rotorua, and I apologize. I'm not naming everyone that sent them. We had heaps of people send us photos.
Mhm.
So if you've seen your photo, it's your photo. But we'll just go through. So this is Rotorua. Apparently, that's where the ninjas live.
I'm sure you guys that have been sending us the photos, I'm sure you're sharing them around on social media. But when our mainstream news media is downplaying the numbers or choosing how to frame their shots to tell a particular narrative, it's your photos on social media and it's your impressions of what it was like if you were there that is going to change people's perception of it.
Yeah, it was amazing. I know that I've seen a few extra people send me messages, so I'm just going to go straight into the BHN page to see if there's any more messages. Anything in the chat? Anything else you want to add to it? Look, it was an amazing day, and the thing about it is it feels to me like it's step 2 of several. Step 1 was the first activation, as they're saying. This is the second activation, and we're also hearing about, I think it's the 8th of June, 7th, 8th of June. There's going to be another protest over climate change. I think that there's something building, and we talked last night about, you might have to wait to win this via attrition, like the oldies are all disappearing. But as happens in a lot of battles, they always put up the last battle they put forward, the last fight they put forward is often the hardest, most violent, most vigorous, and it feels like that this government is doing that at the moment. It feels like this government is putting up the last of that, kind of European centric kickback, pushback that they can do. So I kind of wonder if we're on a precipice. Now, I guess in the scale of a country, a precipice might take 20 years to get over, but it feels like we're right there. And it'll be really interesting to see at the end of all of this that we can thank Winston Peters and David Seymour for bringing this generation of people together to fight this fight to make change. Because they're the two. They're the two that have caused this unification of the country, of people pushing back. So, kia ora. Thanks, Uncle Winnie. Thanks, Uncle Sealess.
Couple of comments here. Hi, did see BHN tops in Wellington today.
Oh, cool.
Absolutely. Manju here says, as a regular listener of your podcast, I went to the protest in Auckland to support as a buffer. Excellent. The mood was hopeful and filled with araha, particularly for the tamariki and the rangatahi. Loved Dave Latale.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I got similar thoughts here in Dunedin. I love seeing the kids there. They must have been some of the first down at Queen's Garden here in Dunedin, and I could hear all the kids practicing their chants and their songs and stuff like that. I just got an absolute kick out of it. And speaking of songs, because of course there was a police presence there, as I was looking around, and everyone was singing Tu Tero Mai Ngā Iwi. I saw a cop at the back just going hundies on that song, having a great time. So yeah, really, really enjoyed that. Jackson Media here says, seeing all of this makes me proud to be a Kiwi. Absolutely. Now, the current government's going to talk about racial division. I didn't see it.
No, actually, one thing. So we talked yesterday about look at the faces of the people there. There were a lot of gingers in the Dunedin protest. Now, I know you can be Māori and be a ginger, but if you're going to play the statistical odds, it's less likely. But it can be, right? I'm with you. But yeah, there were a lot of non-Māori faces there. A lot. In fact, one of the coolest comments, I heard someone in an American accent saying "Honour the treaty." It's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah. I saw a lot of hugs. I saw a lot of people looking around, looking at the crowd and going, "Oh, wow." So, that's really good. Another comment here from Miriam. I was at the Wellington Hikoi, beautiful corridor and Waiata. It was a fantastic contrast to the depressing budget announcement. I was energized by the people there. Brianna on the fight. Yeah, energizing is a good word. And this is why it's important when these things come out that you do go to them. Because a lot of what we talk about, and it's just death by 100 cuts, but a lot of what we talk about gets too much.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like this of going out and doing something in your area and making yourself visible. It's good for you, and it's good for everyone around you.
Yeah.
Because there will be people there that think nobody's going to come to this. Nobody's got my back. Because they're reading social media and they're reading those horrible, horrible comments that are out there.
While we're continuing to talk, this is off a messenger off Facebook, Ototahi. Some images that came in. Made sure we try to get. If I've missed your images as well, look, I do apologize, but there's been a lot, and it's been actually really it's been great. There's been a lot because, you know, you guys have wanted to engage, and you've engaged in your own communities, and then you've engaged with us for this community that we're hanging out with right now. So, there you go. Yeah, proud to be a Kiwi is an interesting one. Oi, Luxon, I went to Racistville and everybody knew you.